Good morning, Year 6, it's Miss Lister, and it is our reading lesson on Tuesday, the 2nd of February 2021. Our learning objective is to increase our familiarity with a wide range of books, including myths and books from other cultures and traditions. So we're going to really think about other books that are different from our own, other settings that are different from our own, and have a step outside what we view as our normal culture and think about areas of the world which may have different cultures and different traditions, with a heavy focus on myths this week. So just take a moment to have a little look at all four of these pictures. So we've got four books: The Chocolate Tree, a Mayan folktale; Rain Player, which we read last week; Hand of Surprise, which for some of you might be a book that you remember maybe from Key Stage 1, Year 1 or Year 2. And the final book, which is Journey to Joburg, which is a book you might read in Year 7 or Year 8. So I'm going to ask you, what do all these books have in common? So just take a moment, have a think. Do they have any similarities? Do they have any differences? I want you to just note down if you think there's any similarities between the covers, anything you notice there, anything that you think might be in the content, because we've read Rain Player and you've looked at Hand of Surprise before. Think about the location that they are set in. Do they look like they're set in England, or are they set somewhere else? Maybe have a think about the message in the story. Do you think that there could be a link between all of them? Have a moment to think. And I will tell you, the thing that joins all of these books together is that they focus on different cultures. So a culture or tradition that is different from our own. So we've got The Chocolate Tree, which is a Mayan folktale, and we know the Mayans are based in Mexico. Again, The Rain Player, set in Mexico because it is a Mayan tale. Hand of Surprise is set in Africa, and then Journey to Joburg is set in South Africa. So this half term, just towards the end of these last 2 weeks of this half term, we're going to look at books that are set in other cultures, and we're going to look for similarities and differences in them. Now I want you to think very carefully about why we need to read books from other cultures, from other places, from other traditions, and people from different backgrounds than our own. So I want you to have a think about an answer to that question and just note it down. On the next slide, we'll go through some of the reasons why it is important to read books from different cultures. There are lots of reasons why it's important to read books from other cultures. So see if any of my reasons match up with your own, but I'd love to see what you've written down, so make sure you upload them at the end of this PowerPoint. So I've put down that they allow us to understand different parts of the world. So through the book, we can understand why different people from different countries or different backgrounds or different religions and cultures do the things that they do, and their beliefs are explained through these books. They also allow us to experience travel without actually going anywhere. So through Rain Play, we were allowed to experience a bit of time travel because we went back to the Mayan times. A little bit like that will happen with The Chocolate Tree as well. If we looked at a book like The Journey to Joburg, we'd be travelling to South Africa and seeing what that place is like, and it allows us to expand our imagination through that. It also lets us learn about other traditions. So places and people that are different from our own, including things like different foods, different religions, and different beliefs. So it allows us to understand how and why people act in different ways, and why and how people believe different things. So we're now going to think about what the genre of a myth actually looks like. So I'm going to read through each checklist that I've put on here. So there's a story genre 1, story genre 2, and story genre 3. And you need to decide which of these checklists sounds most suited to a myth. So story genre 1, it often contains gods. It's set in a different culture, often very old, or they're set in a different time period. They contain a warning or a message for the reader, so they are supposed to learn from this. And they sometimes may have mythical creatures in them. Story genre 2. They often have characters which are princesses and princes. They start with once upon a time, and they always have a happy ending. And then story genre 3. They often have a hero, they have an enemy, they're told in acts in different parts, and they're written in the style of a script. So think, which one of these sounds most like a myth? And on the next slide, we will confirm which one that is. It was genre 1, so well done if you got that one correct. So story genre 1 was a myth. They often do contain gods. They often are set in a different culture. They're often really old, so when you listen to this story, you will see that it's a very old tale. They often contain a warning or a message for the reader. You should come away from a myth feeling like you've learned something, and they were often used in historical times to give a warning to their reader about what they should do and how they should behave. They often have mythical creatures in them as well. Story genre 2 was a fairy tale, so your main characters will usually be a prince or a princess, or somebody becomes a prince or a princess. They often start with once upon a time, and they always have a happy ending. That is not the case in a myth. And then story genre 3 is a play. They have a hero, they have an enemy, they're told in acts, which are parts, and they are written in a script style, so that is shown what somebody is saying all of the time. So just a reminder, the story genre that we are looking at is a myth, and it is all those things that we will be looking for in any kind of story to see if it is a myth or not. So now we know what we are looking for in a myth, we have to think about the goal. So we know that this now is a Mayan myth. It's called a Mayan folk tale, which is very similar to a myth. They can be called a myth as well. So just have a moment and think what I've just told you about what you would expect to see in the genre of a myth. What do you think the goal is? Why would somebody write a myth? Okay, have a think, jot down any ideas that you've got, and the next slide will go through what it's for. So, the goal of a myth. The myths are meant to make the reader react in some way, and traditionally myths would have been told verbally, so they wouldn't have always been written down. So they were kind of a word of mouth story to make people in their culture or the community remember these stories. So the reader should feel like they've learned something by the end of it. Maybe they've learned how to treat somebody, or they've learned how to treat the gods, or they've learned how not to anger the gods. That is the story, that's the point of a myth. Okay? They often contain a moral or a message which the reader can feel an emotion about. For example, there is the tale of Icarus, and it was a Greek myth, and he was the story of a boy who ignored advice from gods and his dad, and he got some wings and he made them, and they were made of feathers, but he flew too close to the sun, and he was told not to, and he died. So that was a message about trying not to be as powerful as the gods and to listen to advice from them. So when we're reading this book this week, we should be thinking about what the message is from this myth. So in this story that we're going to be looking at this week, the chocolate tree, we're going to learn about how chocolate came to be given to the Mayan people. So just be thinking about what the message could be from this story. So if you click on the link, you will be able to follow the link to YouTube, and you'll be able to listen to the story. It includes some nice Mexican music as well to go with it. So just listen carefully and note down any key parts that you get to. You'll need to ensure that you're always thinking about what the message of this story is about either the Mayan people, the Mayan gods, or anybody who's an enemy of the gods. So make sure you're keeping a note of it, because when we come to the end of it, you're going to choose out of the 3 messages that I've written, which one matches the story best. Okay, now you have listened carefully to the story, there are 3 messages here. And I want you to decide which message is best for the story. Which one's right? What is this book trying to say? So I want you to pick which one, message 1, message 2, or message 3. You can just write that bit down, and then underneath I want you to explain why you think that message is the right one. What in the story made you think that? What did you come away from the story feeling about the Mayan people, the Mayan gods, and the enemies of the Mayan? So make sure you've written down your explanation, you've chosen which message you believe is best, and justify it with evidence from what you've just listened to, and then submit it for marking. I hope that you've enjoyed this lesson. We will be looking at the Chocolate Tree book again tomorrow and on Thursday. Thank you very much.